still poor, still alone, and an imaginary wife. The words hit the ballroom before I could even set down my glass. Did you invent a wife just to save face? Marcus, I didn't answer right away. I just let the silence sit there. The way I'd learned to let a lot of things sit. Over the years, 2 days earlier, I'd signed my name, not a company name, mine, on a $412 million infrastructure contract with the city of Chicago. She had no idea. My name is Marcus Delane. I'm 42 years old. And for most of my life, I believed one simple thing: that a man's worth isn't in what people say about him at a party. It's in what he builds, when nobody's watching. Construction taught me that. 20 years of it. Marriage taught me the same lesson twice as hard. 8 years ago, my wife walked out of our house with 2 suitcases and a look on her face like she'd already moved on. Long before she packed the first one, I didn't chase her down the street. I didn't call her family, begging for a second chance. I let her go, and I went quiet. Some folks mistake quiet for broken. They are never the same thing. Which brings me to a Saturday night in October. In a ballroom on Michigan Avenue. At the first high school reunion I'd bothered to attend since the divorce. I was sitting near the back, with a glass of ice water, listening to my ex-wife's laugh carry across the room. The way it always used to, when she thought she'd already won something. She had no idea how wrong she was about to be. And neither, honestly, did I. Let me take you back to a quieter moment, because that's really where this story starts. It was a gray Chicago Thursday. The kind of sky that can't decide if it wants to rain or just sit there. Heavy. Thinking about it, I was in my truck on Lakeshore Drive. Coffee going cold in the cup holder. When the invitation buzzed through on my phone, my old friend Tasha had been the one pushing me to go. You've spent 8 years building your life back up in silence. Marcus, she said over the phone. That same no-nonsense tone she'd had since 10th grade. Go to that reunion. Not to prove anything. Just to close the door properly. I almost said no. I'd built a good, quiet life. A home in the Gold Coast. A wife who loved me steady and sure. Work that actually mattered. I didn't need a room full of old classmates to tell me I was a man. But something in me wanted to walk back into that space one time. Not as the man who left broken, but simply as myself. So on Saturday night, I put on a plain charcoal suit. No flash, no statement. I drove to the hotel alone. Simone had a foundation board meeting running late. She runs an education fund for kids on the south and west sides. Work she cares about more than any gala in the world, and she told me she'd catch up with me there. The lobby smelled like fresh flowers and expensive coffee. A jazz trio played low near the elevators. Something slow and brassy. The kind of sound that makes a whole room feel like it's holding its breath before a show starts. Outside, rain had started tapping soft against the windows. Streetlights blurred gold and red on the wet pavement below. I straightened my jacket in the elevator mirror, took one slow breath, and reminded myself why I'd actually come. Not to prove a single thing, just to close a door that had been left cracked open for 8 long years. Now, to understand why that door mattered so much, you have to understand what it cost me to leave it open in the first place. There was a night, years earlier, on the south side, rain coming down so hard, it bounced off the pavement outside a downtown conference center. I was standing under a thin jacket, soaked clean through, waiting on Danielle to finish a networking event for a certification program she wanted badly. I'd sold my grandfather's set of framing tools 2 weeks before that. The good steel ones. The ones I'd used to put myself through my very first construction jobs, just so she could afford the fee. I never told her where the money came from. I didn't need her gratitude. I just needed her to have a shot at something better. When she finally came outside and saw me standing there, drenched to the bone. She didn't say thank you. She looked at me like I was an inconvenience and said, "Why do you look so pathetic right now?" I said nothing that night. I said nothing most nights. That whole marriage, I used to think silence was patience. I know better now. There were other nights like that one, smaller in size, but not in weight. Nights I picked up extra shifts just to cover somebody else's gift, somebody else's favor, somebody else's comfort, and came home to a cold plate on the counter and a closed door. None of it felt like sacrifice. Back then, it felt like love. The only way I knew how to speak it. I understand now. A man can pour his whole self into a cup somebody else already decided not to drink from. So when Tasha told me to go close that door properly, I didn't fully understand what she meant. Standing in my truck that gray Thursday morning, I had no idea how many doors in that ballroom were about to swing open at once. I walked in under gold chandeliers and low jazz, and the first face I saw was hers. Danielle smiled at me the way people smile when they think they've already won. "Well, look who decided to show up," she said, stepping closer, drink in hand. Her voice pitched just loud enough for the room to catch it. "Still alone, Marcus, or are you still out there swinging a hammer for a living?" Hoping somebody notices, I looked her dead in the eye. "Calm. Steady." "No," I said. "I'm married." For one full second, the whole cluster of old classmates around her went completely quiet. Then she laughed. A big, performative laugh. The kind meant to convince a room, before it even convinces the person laughing it. Nobody in that ballroom believed me yet. They had no idea how fast that was about to change. Danielle threw her head back and laughed louder. "Married. That's rich." "Marcus. Truly." She turned to the circle of old classmates gathered around her, like she needed witnesses for whatever came next. "Y'all hear this? Marcus says he's married. A man who couldn't build a stable life in 8 years. Suddenly got a wife nobody's ever heard of." I kept my voice even. 3 years now. 3 years. She repeated, like the words tasted strange in her mouth. "And where is this mystery wife tonight? Home? Or maybe she doesn't exist." Outside your head, standing beside her, was a man I didn't recognize. Tall, groomed within an inch of his life. A suit that cost more than it actually fit him. Trent. I'd learn his name soon enough. What I noticed first wasn't his face. It was his eyes. They kept dropping to my wrist, to the plain steel watch I'd worn every day for 6 years. The one that used to belong to my father. He wasn't looking at it the way a man looks at something he likes. He was looking at it the way a man looks at a number he's trying to calculate. "She's finishing up a meeting." I said simply, "She'll be here soon." Danielle waved a hand like she was swatting away a fly. Still nothing. "Marcus. Still poor. Still alone. Even if you've invented somebody to sit next to you tonight." I let that land and pass through me, without taking root. Anger is a poor tenant. You let it stay too long, it stops paying rent and starts tearing up the walls. I'd learned that the hard way. "You know what the saddest part is," she went on, emboldened by her friend's laughter. "You actually thought you'd amount to something. All that talk back in school about building something real. And look at you. Same tired suit. Same tired face. Some men just don't have it in them." I thought about all the years I'd spent believing that if I just worked hard enough, long enough, quiet enough, she'd eventually see me. I wasn't that man anymore. Danielle just hadn't gotten the memo yet. "You should slow down," I said quietly, not unkind. "Just factual. You're about to say something you can't take back." She laughed again, but this time, there was an edge underneath it. a flicker of something uncertain, crossing behind her eyes for just a second, before her performance smoothed back over it. Slow down, Marcus. I have absolutely nothing to slow down for. I have my life together. I have Trent. She reached for his arm, pulling him half a step closer, presenting him like an exhibit. And you have what, a tool belt. And an imaginary wife. Behind her, I noticed a woman I recognized from senior year. Renee. Sharp-eyed, quiet. The kind of person who never spoke until she had something worth saying. Arms folded, jaw set tight. These days, she worked compliance audits on municipal contracts, the kind of job that meant she noticed the details most people never thought to look for. She caught my eye across the room. She didn't smile. She gave the smallest nod. Like she already knew something the rest of the room didn't. I thought about Tasha's voice on the phone 2 days earlier, telling me to go close the door properly. I hadn't understood yet. Standing in my truck, that gray morning. Just how many doors in that ballroom were about to swing open at once, somewhere near the entrance. I heard the low murmur of a door opening, footsteps on marble, a shift in the air of the room, the particular kind of quiet that falls over a crowd right before it turns to face something. Danielle hadn't heard it yet. She was still talking, still laughing, still certain the ground beneath her was solid. It wasn't. Not anymore. If you were standing in that ballroom right now, waiting to see who blinks first, who would you be rooting for, Team Marcus? Staying calm and letting the truth do the talking? Or Team Danielle? Because at least she says exactly what she's thinking. Drop a comment below. Team Marcus or Team Danielle? We're counting, because in about 10 seconds, Danielle's whole night was about to change. Somebody had just walked through that door, and she still had no idea who. The doors at the far end of the ballroom opened fully, and the low jazz seemed to dim half a step, the way a room does when it decides, without being told, that something important just walked in. Simone. She wore a deep midnight blue gown, her curls swept up high, moving through that ballroom the way people move when they've never once needed a room's permission to belong in it. Heads turned. A woman near the bar whispered to her friend, just loud enough for me to catch it. Is that Simone Delane, the one who runs the education fund for the South and West Side schools? Danielle turned to see what everyone else was looking at. I watched the color drain slowly from her face. Simone crossed the room straight to me, took my hand in both of hers, and pressed a kiss to my cheek. Right there, in front of everyone. Sorry I'm late. Baby, she said, warm and unhurried. That meeting ran long. Danielle's cruelty that night was never really about me. It was insurance against a fear she'd carried since our marriage ended, that trading a loyal man for status might have been the worst decision of her life, and she needed a room full of witnesses to help her believe otherwise. Simone walking through that door wasn't just a surprise to her. It was the exact fear she'd spent 8 years outrunning. Finally catching up to her. In the one room she couldn't leave, Danielle's mouth opened, then closed. When she finally spoke, her voice had lost every bit of its edge. Oh, so, you're Marcus's wife. Before Simone answered, she leaned in close enough that only I could hear her. Renee called me on my way over. She murmured, she's here. And I just got the notification. The contract closed this afternoon. That last signature finally came through. 412 million. Done. I felt that land, quiet and steady, in my chest. The way good news does. When you've stopped needing it to prove anything to anyone but yourself. Simone straightened, turned to Danielle, and answered her question directly. No performance in it at all. Yes, I'm his wife, and I'm very proud of my husband. My wife. Not a rumor. Not an invention. Standing right there. in a room that had spent the last 20 minutes calling her imaginary. The room had gone almost silent. A few feet away, someone's champagne glass hovered halfway to their mouth. Forgotten. Danielle tried to recover, forcing a laugh that came out thin and unconvincing. Well, that's wonderful. I had no idea Marcus had. She stopped, glanced at me, then back at Simone. At someone like you, most people don't take the time to find out what someone actually has. Simone said, still calm, still warm, no malice in it. Just fact. I thought, standing there, about the first time I'd met Simone, 3.5 years earlier, at a community fundraiser, where she'd been quietly writing checks nobody had asked her to write, and fixing problems nobody had asked her to fix. She hadn't known who I was that night either. She'd simply watched me help an elderly man carry folding chairs back to a supply closet, long after anyone with something to prove would have already gone home, and she'd said, "Most men leave once the cameras stop." I told her I wasn't most men. She said she'd believe that when she saw it proven over time, not over one night. It took 2 years of steady, unremarkable Tuesdays for her to finally believe it. That's the thing nobody in that ballroom understood about either of us. We hadn't built what we had on a single grand gesture. We'd built it the way I built everything else in my life. One honest day at a time, with nobody watching. Until eventually, somebody did. I watched something shift behind Danielle's eyes. Not full understanding yet, but the first crack in the foundation. She looked at me, really looked, maybe for the first time in 8 years, and I could see her running numbers she didn't have access to. The tailored suit that wasn't flashy, but wasn't cheap either. The watch Trent kept eyeing. The woman standing next to me who half the room recognized on sight. "So," Danielle said carefully, testing the ground, "what exactly do you do now?" "Mark is still in construction. I run a construction and infrastructure company." I said simply, "We just closed a contract with the city." I didn't say the number. I didn't need to. Some truths don't need volume. They just need time to sink in. Trent shifted his weight beside her, and for the first time all night, he looked genuinely uneasy. He'd spent the whole evening measuring me up like a problem to be solved. And now, the math wasn't adding up the way he'd expected. He leaned toward Danielle and said something low. Just for her, but I caught the tail end of it. Didn't say anything about him actually having money. Danielle shot him a sharp look, a silent warning to keep his voice down. But it was too late. I'd heard enough to understand that, whatever Trent had promised her, it had never once accounted for the possibility that I might be the one standing taller by the end of the night. That's great," Danielle said, her voice climbing an octave too high. "Really great. Marcus, I'm happy for you." She didn't sound happy. She sounded like a woman watching the floor tilt slowly beneath her heels. But the wife walking through that door wasn't even the biggest secret in that ballroom. Not by a long way. Renee didn't wait for an invitation. She crossed the room with the steady, unhurried stride of someone who'd been waiting years for the right moment to say something out loud. "Danielle," she said, her voice carrying clean and clear across the circle of onlookers. "That's enough." Danielle blinked at her, caught off guard. "Renee, this doesn't concern you." "It does." Actually, Renee's arms stayed folded, her tone level, unshaken, because some of us have known for years exactly what kind of man Marcus is, and we've watched you build an entire evening around pretending otherwise. She paused, letting the room settle into full silence. What most people here don't know is that for the last 6 years, Marcus has quietly funded the entire scholarship endowment at our old high school. Every single one of those scholarship kids you've all clapped for at the alumni dinners, that's him. He never put his name on a plaque. He never told anyone. Not even me. I found out by accident, going through the fund's paperwork last spring. A ripple moved through the crowd. Heads turning, voices dropping into murmurs. Someone near the back said, "Wait, that's been Marcus. This whole time, I felt something tighten and loosen in my chest at once. I thought of the first check I'd written 6 years earlier. Alone at my kitchen table past midnight, telling myself it didn't need my name attached to matter. I'd expected pride, hearing it said aloud in front of a room. Instead, I felt oddly exposed, like a door I'd kept locked out of habit had swung open without my permission. I didn't reach for credit. I never had." Danielle's face had gone pale, her mouth slightly open. No comeback ready. Renee wasn't finished. She turned deliberately toward Trent. "And you," she said, "I might want to sit this next part out quietly, because I know exactly what you tried to do to Marcus's company 2 years ago. The falsified subcontractor bid, the shell paperwork, routed through a fake vendor account, to try and skim off a city project. It didn't work, because Marcus's team caught it before it went anywhere. But I have no doubt Danielle knew, didn't you? Danielle, you covered for him." The color left Danielle's face entirely. She turned to Trent, her voice cracking. "You told me that was a misunderstanding. You said don't," Trent said flatly, stepping back half a step, distancing himself in real time. "Don't make this about me right now." His hand had gone tight around his glass, knuckles pale against the crystal. The practiced ease slid off his face for just half a second, replaced by something colder, something calculating, the same look he'd worn all night. Studying my watch. A man running numbers on an exit, not an apology. A woman near the punch table murmured to her husband. I always wondered how Trent afforded that condo on nothing but consulting fees. Word travels fast. In a room that's already decided to stop being polite, Tasha appeared at my elbow sometime in the middle of it. Having crossed the room the moment things started to unravel. She didn't say anything right away, just stood there, arms crossed, watching Danielle the way you'd watch weather rolling in that you'd already predicted years ago. "I told you," she murmured, low enough that only I could hear. Closing the door properly might take the door off its hinges. I almost laughed. Almost. Danielle, still reeling, turned back toward the small circle of old classmates who'd egged her on all night, searching their faces for the same laughter that had backed her up 20 minutes earlier. She found none of it. A few of them had already started drifting toward the bar, suddenly very interested in refreshing their drinks. Trent, stepping back from her, wasn't just betrayal. It confirmed the one fear Danielle had never said out loud, not even to herself, that she'd left real loyalty behind for a man who was never actually loyal to anything but his own comfort. Her deepest desire had always been simple, to never again feel like the woman standing outside in the rain, waiting on someone else's ambition to notice her. But choosing status over substance meant defending a man who, the second the room turned against him, wouldn't defend her back. That contradiction is what broke her in front of everyone. Not the accusation itself, the proof that she'd built her whole second chance on exactly the kind of abandonment she thought she'd escaped. Danielle turned back to me, desperation replacing the arrogance that had carried her through the whole evening. "Marcus, you knew about this, about Trent's scheme, and you never said anything I knew," I said quietly. "My legal team caught it. We handled it without needing to make a scene." She stared at me like she was seeing me for the first time in 8 years. "Why didn't you ever tell me the man she'd chosen over me wouldn't even choose her back?" And she was only just beginning to understand how much further this night still had to fall. Simone answered before I could, her voice calm, but unmistakably firm. "Because there's something else you should know. Danielle, Marcus knew about you and Trent long before the divorce was ever filed. Years before." The room went still enough that I could hear the ice shifting in someone's glass. 3 feet away. Danielle's eyes went wide, then filled, her composure, finally, breaking all the way through. You knew. This whole time I nodded once. I knew. Then why didn't you say something? Why did you just let it happen? Because for a long time, I said, my voice steady, no anger left in it, just plain truth. I thought if I stayed quiet long enough, worked hard enough, you'd eventually choose me on your own. I didn't want to force it. I wanted you to see me. I paused. You never did. And eventually, I stopped needing you to. Danielle turned to Trent one last time, her voice breaking into something raw and unguarded. You told me you'd give me the life Marcus never could. You said I'd never have to worry again. What happened to all of that? Trent looked at her with something close to contempt. Don't put that on me right now. Don't put it on you, her voice cracked louder now. Past the point of caring who heard. I lied for you. I told my own mother that condo was legitimate. I told everyone in this room tonight that you were the better choice. She was shaking now, the champagne flute in her hand trembling hard enough that a little of it spilled over the rim, onto her wrist. She didn't seem to notice. Trent straightened his jacket, already halfway to leaving, in his mind, if not yet in his feet. That sounds like a you problem. Danielle. Somewhere behind me, I heard someone whisper, not unkindly, Lord have mercy. The way people do when they've just watched a slow-motion collision they saw coming from a mile off. The crowd around them had thinned considerably, people quietly stepping back, drifting away from the wreckage, no one wanting to be standing too close. When the rest of it came down, I stood there with my wife's hand in mine, and I felt something I hadn't expected to feel in that moment. Not triumph, not satisfaction, just a quiet, settled kind of stillness, the feeling of a door finally closing all the way. After being left cracked open for 8 long years, I thought about all the nights I'd imagined this moment differently. Imagined myself saying something cutting, something that would land, the way her words used to land on me, standing there in that ballroom. The words never came, and I realized I didn't want them to. There's a version of justice that shouts, and there's a version that simply stands still, while the truth does the work for you. I'd spent 8 years learning the difference. Renee stepped back beside me for a moment, her voice low. Just for us. I probably should have said something years ago. You said it exactly when it needed saying. I told her, not a minute before. Tasha squeezed my shoulder once. A small, wordless gesture that said more than any speech could have. I didn't feel the need to say anything else to Danielle. There was nothing left to prove. And for the first time in a long time, that felt like enough. We turned to leave. Behind me, I heard her voice. Thinner now, stripped of every ounce of performance it had carried all night. Marcus, wait. Please, just wait a second. I didn't turn around. Later that night, at a red light on a quiet street, my phone buzzed once in my jacket pocket. A text from a number I hadn't saved, though I recognized it instantly. Danielle, I'm sorry. For tonight, for a lot of things, I looked at it for a long moment, the light still red, the wipers ticking once, across a windshield that didn't need it. Simone glanced over, not asking, just present. You don't have to answer that tonight, she said quietly. Or Eva, if you don't want to. I know. I put the phone face down in the cup holder. Some doors don't need slamming shut. You can just let them ease closed on their own weight. And that's its own kind of answer. We didn't say much else the rest of the drive. The streetlights blurred past in long gold streaks, and somewhere out past the buildings, I could just make out the dark line of the lake against a darker sky. A city has a way of looking especially honest at night. No pretense left in it. Just the water, and the wind, and whatever's true underneath. I rolled the window down an inch, just enough to let the cold air in, and something about it felt like exhaling a breath I'd been holding since a ballroom. Miles behind us. When we pulled into the driveway, the porch light was on, the way Simone always leaves it, warm and steady. Against the dark. I sat in the car a second longer than I needed to, just taking it in, the quiet street, the house we'd built a real life inside of. My wife, waiting beside me. Instead of walking ahead of me, "You okay?" she asked. "Yeah," I said, and I meant it. I think I actually am. Inside, I didn't turn on the lights right away. I stood in the hallway a moment, listening to the house settle around me. The small, ordinary sounds of a life that had nothing left to prove to anybody. The next morning, I stood out on the back porch with a cup of coffee, looking out toward the trees a few blocks over, the sky doing that pale, washed-out gray. A city does so well in October. Somewhere down the street, a neighbor's dog barked twice at the mail carrier, and then thought better of it. Ordinary sounds, ordinary morning, the kind I used to take for granted. Before I understood how rare a peaceful morning actually is. Simone came out a few minutes later, wrapped in an old cardigan she refuses to throw away. No matter how many new ones I buy her, she handed me a second cup, even though I already had one going cold in my hand. She always says, a cold cup of coffee is just a reminder to slow down, not a mistake to fix. You knew about the affair for years. Before the divorce, she said quietly, you stayed anyway. You kept trying. I did. Why, I thought about it honestly. Before I answered, because I believed if I was successful enough, patient enough, quiet enough, she'd eventually see what she had. I thought if I proved myself, she'd finally choose me the way I chose her. I took a slow sip of coffee, watching the steam curl up into the cold air. But somewhere along the way, I stopped needing her to see it. I just needed to see it myself. Simone studied me a moment, the way she does when she's about to ask the real question underneath the question. Do you hate her? After everything, I smiled. Small, but real. No. I said, I forgave her a long time ago. What I hadn't forgiven not until last night was the version of myself who used to believe he had to earn the right to be loved. I shook my head slowly. I don't owe anybody proof anymore. Not her. Not that ballroom. Not even myself. Simone leaned her head against my shoulder, and we stood there a long while, coffee going lukewarm in our hands. Here's the part I want to leave you with, because it's the part that took me 8 years to actually understand. The biggest win of that night wasn't watching Danielle's world come apart in that ballroom. It wasn't the scholarship reveal, or Trent's fraud finally seeing daylight. It wasn't even the moment Simone walked in and turned every head in the room. The real win was quieter than all of that. It was standing on my own back porch the next morning, coffee in hand, my wife beside me, finally free of the need for anyone's applause. No ballroom gives you that. You have to build it yourself, one ordinary morning at a time, long after anyone's watching, to see whether you will. If somebody's underestimating you right now at work, in your own family, in a room that's already decided who you are, you don't owe them a speech. You don't owe them a comeback. Keep building, quietly, steadily, the way nobody's watching yet. Because one day, somebody walks through a door, and the whole room finally sees what you knew all along. If you've made it this far with me, I want you to sit with something for just a second before we close this out. Danielle spent 8 years believing that walking away from a quiet man, for the promise of something louder, was moving forward. She never once stopped to ask what forward was actually costing her. And Trent, the man she rewrote her whole life around, proved, in the space of about 10 minutes, that some people will stand next to you for exactly as long as it's convenient, not 1 second longer. That's not just a story about one ballroom in October. That's a story about every single person watching this right now, who has ever been underestimated, overlooked, laughed at, quietly or loudly, by somebody who thought they already knew how your story ended. Here's what I've learned, and what I hope you carry with you tonight. You don't owe anyone a comeback speech. You don't owe them proof. You don't owe them a single receipt of everything you built while they weren't paying attention. Let your life be the only argument you ever make, because the people who mock you the loudest are very often the ones most afraid you're about to prove them wrong. Marcus didn't win that night because he had more money than his ex-wife assumed. He won because he'd quietly built a life so steady, it no longer needed her approval to stand up straight. That kind of peace is available to every single one of us. One small, deliberate choice at a time, one quiet Tuesday at a time. One door, closed, gently, instead of slammed. So tonight, if somebody in your life has already decided you're finished, that you'll never amount to anything, that you're stuck exactly where they last saw you, let them believe it. Let them be wrong in peace. And when that door finally opens, because it will, you won't need to say a single word. The room will already know. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever been underestimated by someone who thought they already had you figured out? Someone who laughed too soon? Tell me your story in the comments. I read every single one, and some of the strongest stories on this channel started right there, in that comment section. If this story moved you tonight, do me one favor before you go. Hit that subscribe button, because we tell stories exactly like this one every single week. Stories about quiet strength, real justice, and the kind of peace that money can't actually buy, but character eventually earns. Give this video a like if you were rooting for Marcus tonight, and share it with somebody who needs to hear, right now, that their quiet work is not going unnoticed. It's simply not finished yet. Thank you for spending this time with me. And remember, build your life so steady that one day, nobody in the room even needs to ask if you're enough. They'll already know. I'll see you in the next one.